Eliav Shaked is a biomedical engineer from Israel who once worked at a summer camp in upstate New York. A favorite staffer there developed dementia and went downhill so fast that Eliav couldn't even visit her. That's when he decided to turn his attention to focusing on early detection of Alzheimer's disease. Retispec, which is short for Retinal spectroscopy, is an innovative imaging company that uses artificial intelligence to detect neurodegenerative diseases. Eliav co-founded the company, and he's the CEO. It's said that the eyes are the window to the soul. That may or may not be true, but in Retispec's case, the eyes are definitely the window to the brain. Looking through them is a great way to avoid invasive procedures like lumbar puncture. I'm David Williams, host of the HealthBiz podcast and president of Health Business Group. I hope you enjoyed my discussion with Eliav just as much as I did. Eliav Shaked, CEO and co-founder of Retispec. Welcome to the HealthBiz podcast.
Hi, happy to be here, David.
Sometimes the guests are concerned if we're doing video here. Now, I think I should be concerned about doing video, given what your company does, and if I'm going to be analyzed during the podcast. But I hope you'll put that aside.
No, we're not intending to do that. No worries.
Yeah, good. All right, good. So let's just jump in and talk about kind of your background. What was your upbringing like? Any childhood influences that have stuck with you?
Well, I was born and raised in Israel. And that's now I live in Canada. My childhood was pretty normal, happy, and I remember making perfumes to my mom by experimenting plants when I was like 5 years old. I was really into chemistry, and then I was obsessively watching ER. Remember that show?
Yeah.
And I was really, really into medicine and chemistry, and that's what I chose for my major in high school as well, and continue to be a medic in the Israel Defense Force. And that experience changed my life because until then I wasn't sure really what I wanted to pursue, and then I decided that medicine is the right path. And trying to see how we could disrupt it in some way. So right after the Army, I started my efforts to get into biomedical engineering or medical school. First, I made it to biomedical engineering. Then I made it to medical school, but I decided to continue to pursue biomedical engineering to continue with my master, because the only way you can really make an impact is coming from the outside, and that was really... Yeah. What biomedical engineering is all about.
Very interesting. It's good you probably went in that direction, biomedical engineering first instead of medical school first, and then you would have said,
it was not my first choice. It was, I really feel like it's very hard to get into medical school in Israel. There's 80 seats in the university, but it's like 7 years from the start. And I just was really close, and I decided you can just go through this biomedical engineering first, and then you can do the 4-year program. Yeah, we just opened up, and so yeah.
That's good. Well, I'm skeptical of somebody who was raised in Israel and said they just had a normal childhood. The last CEO that I had on here from Israel, which is actually Giddy Stein from MetaWare, he said, they just had a normal upbringing. He said, this is in Jerusalem. I had olive trees from biblical times in my backyard, etc. And it's like, well, that sounds like a nice childhood. I'm not sure that's like a typical childhood elsewhere, but that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Now, you did some stuff along the way that wasn't obvious to me how it tied in with biomedical engineering. You worked for the Jewish Agency and HeadSense, and then you were at Singularity University. So how did that all fit into your life? Or does it only make sense in retrospect, or not even that way?
It all makes sense. There is a reason and a purpose for where you are at any given time. So basically, my interest since 13 years old was mainly into healthcare and medicine, and I was really passionate about this. And biomedical engineering, through biomedical engineering, I also was part of the Jewish Agency of Israel as a summer camp counselor in North American summer camps. So
nice.
That taught me a lot about leadership and what is important in a community and building a community, because summer camps are just you're building a community in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So that actually.
Where were you? What summer camps were you in?
I was in Camp Edii. It's upstate New York. It's related to the YMCA or the JCC at Queens in New York, and that actually is very connected to Retispec because Amy Posner is the camp director. Also had her mom there. We call her Safta. She was basically the grandma of the camp, and she was amazingly strong lady and with business savviness, and then she was a real estate entrepreneur in her professional career. And she a few years into summer camps, I was there every summer while I was completing my biomedical engineering degree. I heard from the camp, from her daughter, that she has started to develop dementia, and back then they called it Alzheimer. They weren't really sure, and I wanted to go and visit her. And that was around the time I was in Singularity University, being bombarded with innovation and the future and exponential technologies, and how can we impact 1 billion people in over the next decade. And that's what Singularity University is all about. So I wanted to go and visit Carol, who had suffered from dementia, but that was already too late. And it was so rapid and so impactful that I couldn't go ahead and visit her, someone I cared so much for, that I was troubled by, why can't we detect it early? What's the problem there? And Singularity University was kind of the cultivating me in motivation, bombarding me with motivation to build something meaningful and impactful. And that was the serendipity of all these different parts of my life that made me push forward towards kickstarting Retispec.
There we are. Okay, so in Retispec, what are some of the challenges with Alzheimer's disease detection and treatment?
So that's a heavy question, but
get right to it.
You can think about it just from your perspective. The challenges right now is, you can see therapeutics starting to ooze into the market. You have disease-modifying drug. This has never before happened, and it just happened July last year. And you have more drugs coming into the market over this year. It's basically an opportunity to really an opportunity now that is introduced to the world. You have a lot of drugs, really good, exceptional drugs that show promise in clinical trials that are starting to get more closer and closer to market. In that world, in that reality, you need to understand that the problem is that you need to provide accessibility for these drugs, and the triage is now halted with detection and early detection and accurate detection. How early is a question mark, but the ability to diagnose it at the right time so you can actually triage and get treatment that is now available is key. And the current modalities that are allowing to confirm the pathology of Alzheimer's disease are primarily inaccessible, expensive, and are going to add a significant burden to healthcare systems across the globe if this would be the case. Because right now they're primarily reserved for oncology and anything that's related to cardiovascular, such as PET CT scans or lumbar puncture. These are really inaccessible and quite invasive procedures. So what we try to introduce to the market and are building right now is a way to leverage the fact that you could access a brain tissue through a retinal examination. And basically the retina is a direct extension to the brain, and mirrors some of the markers that are present in a person that has Alzheimer's disease. The way that we are enabling this to be a diagnostic tool is by coupling spectroscopy, which is in vitro way to confirm that, with retinal imaging, and building algorithms in order to classify between and differentiate between individuals who are sick versus healthy.
So that's how it comes quite clear. It's a heavy question, but you summarized it with the name of the company. Ready for Retina and Spec for spectroscopy. So it sounds like you've got it all narrowed down. There's a lot of challenges.
I was not sure that would be the path, but that made the first. That was the first page, and I said, "Yeah, let's go with that."
That sounds good. So if you think about the problem here, as you were mentioning with Carol, went very quickly from the time somebody noticed anything until it was too late. And I think some of the problems with the drugs that have been on the market, or just even the newly approved or in the late stage pipeline, is that by the time you get to that point, no drug is going to help. But even then, the price of the drug is so high that it could still bankrupt the system. And then you've got this issue with these different kind of scientific approaches and groups. One focusing on amyloid plaques that have taken a lot of money. So it's like a big problem. And if I think about it from the standpoint, I was of course joking about that you were going to diagnose me here on the show, but do I want to know? For a drug developer, they want to know early, but do I want to know that I am going to have full-blown Alzheimer's in 15 years?
Yes. There's treatment, so you would want to get it treated. You don't want to, I would ask anyone that has had the experience of caring for someone with dementia or witnessing the last years, and nobody wants to go through this. And I want to live in a world where you don't have to go through this. The key to do that is through early and accurate detection, and that would help you prepare for either, okay, there are treatments available, I know the good and bad, and the cost aspect of it, well, this would be resolved. The more this market is now in this amazing transition. And we already proved that this could be accepted and at scale with COVID and the vaccination and all the options there. So the need for detection is key. But the problem is that healthcare systems are not ready with the current tools. So once you get the diagnosis, get confirmation of risk for you carrying the pathology through a simple eye examination or a blood test or anything that would be accessible within your community, it will allow for you and your family to prepare financially for what's to come. It will allow for you to choose the option to participate in clinical therapeutic studies that are extremely promising, that make sense for you and your family to take that journey. And you could also take part of what is available in the market, which now is the Aduhelm, but also there's more to come in the near future. So detection at the right time is key. There are many other lifestyle modifications and dietary restrictions you can already start practicing if you know that you are at risk. And I'm more in there. There's two different types of people. I want to know, and I want to prevent, and I want to be able to impact my own health. And now that you have options that are available, so many options in the market, and opportunity to reduce financial burden or pain and suffering for my surroundings and my loved ones is something I want to be in control of.
Yeah, it makes good sense. I think it'd probably be a different show, and I'm not the right expert to ask about kind of where these therapeutics are going and what's the advantage or challenges of them. But I think even the points you made about even absent treatment, you kind of, it's helpful to know, because then you can plan, including financially and so on. So I see it from that standpoint. Let's talk about where you are on the development spectrum here. So it sounds good, and I like I definitely like the idea of someone could look in my eye as opposed to someone's going to puncture my, do a lumbar puncture in order to get some information, then find out that, ow, that hurt, and now I have an infection, and they still didn't know they got to come back and take another puncture of me. So I like the idea, but where does this stand? And they sometimes say I think the eye is a window to the soul. And I guess this is kind of the closest thing that you're getting. But where do you stand? Where does it go from here?
Well, that's a great question. So basically, what we are, the hardest part is really trying to understand the problem, and the problem is that you need a confirmation of the pathology in order to disease modify it with therapeutics. And the pathology is something that within Alzheimer's disease starts developing about 10, 20 years before. Just like cholesterol as an indicator, or high cholesterol as an indicator for cardiovascular disease, you don't want to get to that endpoint where you have a clear acute cardiovascular disease. So we don't want you to get to a point that the neurodegenerative disease is impacting already, and you're starting to have a neurodegeneration in of the nerve cells. The ability to detect that burden, the pathology, in a non-invasive way is key to understand how we go about it in our solution. The problem is you need to pick up the pathology, and access into the brain is pretty much impossible, but there are ways to go about it if you look at it from the only accessible way through the eye. And the back of the eye is a direct extension to the brain, and the optic nerve and the disc, and basically there's a lot of similarities and markers you can pick up that are related to brain pathology. So we want to avoid the words similar or showing a trend. We want to be accurate. We want to provide a medical grade confirmation of the pathology, and that's the mission for Retispec. And we want to do this in an accessible and affordable way. So looking at the retina through hyperspectral imaging, essentially hyperspectral retinal imaging, allows you to gather incredible amount of data. For every part of the eye, you can get a spectral and spatial information that was not available just a few years ago because the technology was not there yet. The way that the most challenging aspect of what we're building is not the ability to bring it through FDA clearance. It's actually the ability to provide a medical grade confirmation of the pathology through an eye examination, and to do this within minutes you can get that confirmation. And that is done through training our algorithms based on the confirmation of the pathology. So we kickstarted about now it's 11 clinical sites across the globe, amazing research institutions and amazing principal investigators we work with globally that are leading the pack in Alzheimer's disease. And what we essentially are gathering from the patients that are participating in our studies is not only the Retinal, the Retispec examination, but also a confirmation of the pathology through either cerebrospinal fluid analysis or a amyloid PET scan or tau PET scan, or any other confirmation that relates to the entire battery of work that goes across the diagnostic phase of confirmation of Alzheimer's disease.
Great.
Now that we know who has it and who does not have it, we developed algorithm that presented actually in CTAD, which is one of the leading conference for Alzheimer's disease in November of last year. And Dr. Sharon Coyne of Toronto Memory Program have presented our results showing AUC, so concordance of 88%, compared to either PET or CSF confirmation of the pathology, the amyloid burden in the brain. So it's a journey. Now we have a lot more confidence, and we are starting to expand in that regard and are looking into kickstarting our FDA efforts this year. But the biggest challenge is how do you bring it to the community in an accessible way? Right. Since we are building algorithms and we're using already available technology, fundus cameras that are already out there, and we don't develop any hardware in that regard, that puts us in a very unique position to scale very fast and to be accessible, and that's our mission, and that's what's really needed for the Alzheimer's ecosystem. So we're proud of our work and very excited of what's to come.
So Eliav, do you think that this is something that would be offered, like say, as part of a routine eye exam, just the way, you know, people have certain
Yes.
tests done when they're age 50 or whatever? It would, how would this be incorporated?
Exactly. Anyone can get it, an eye examination from any age, from 40, 50.
Yeah.
If you have risk, you can go and get checked. We wanted this to be integrated, and we successfully did that. We integrated eye examination in neurology settings.
Right.
We're in clinical sites that usually do not have eye examination, but it's very easy because we're using already we're leveraging amazing technology that was developed in the ophthalmic imaging space already. So that really is exciting, and we are very proud of our partners that help us with that. They understand this market, they understand the need, and they have interest into growing with us and to help us solve this immense problem.
Would you see a tie-in also with drug development? You know, clearly these sort of biomarkers would be useful. Does that fit into your business model, or you just think it'll be used alongside, kind of as it becomes routine, the companies will incorporate it into their own research?
It fits into the need. And let me tell you, clinical trials, there's so much that goes into drug development. And we are starting to better understand that from learning from the field. We're talking with a lot of pharma companies and the sites that are recruiting for these amazingly important studies. The biggest challenge and the most time-consuming part of any therapeutic study in Alzheimer's disease is recruitment.
Right.
And that is blocked mainly because even the best specialists for Alzheimer's disease who would recommend 5 patients to be recruited for this study, once you send those 5 patients that they're pretty sure they have the pathology to a confirmatory analysis or a PET scan or CSF, only 1 gets randomized for the study. That's the ratio you have today. And if we could help reduce the time and cost, then that would be incredible. We already showcased this, and we are now expanding this in multiple sites across the U.S. and Canada. So there is a significant benefit for us to be able to pre-screen in that regards. But that's not our main focus, and this is not what we're pursuing. We want to get our technology to market, and then what you think your product is and what people make use of it is completely different. And we just want to get it right our mission is to provide scientific rigor and confirmation of this in the best way possible. This is what excites us. How people are going to make use of it, whether it's to streamline therapeutics or to triage for Alzheimer's disease or any other ways that we can support, is at the hands of the clinicians and healthcare providers.
So Eliav, last question here is about shifting away from Retispec. Is any books you've been reading, and in particular anything that you would recommend to the audience?
I love Hemingway. That's my go-to, but I want to recommend The Wide Lens. I was recommended for this book. It's about, if you want to be understanding product in and out and understanding the process of innovation, then that's been a great book that helped me understand that more, and I highly recommend it.
Excellent. Well, I will actually read that one myself, and maybe I'll report back on it on another show. So, Eliav Shaked, Retispec CEO and co-founder, thank you for joining me today on the HealthBiz podcast.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the HealthBiz podcast with me, David Williams, president of Health Business Group. I conduct in-depth interviews with leaders in healthcare business and policy. If you like what you hear, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite service. While you're at it, go ahead and subscribe on your second and third favorite services as well. There's more good stuff to come, and you won't want to miss an episode. If your organization is seeking strategy consulting services in healthcare, check out our website, healthbusinessgroup.com.